And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again, and today's video is something that I've never really done before. It's kind of a reaction video, and specifically a reaction video to another YouTuber's content. In this case, I'm reacting to a video by a YouTuber called Mystic, who I'm a massive fan of. First thing I'll say is this is not a negative or critical video in any way. I actually kind of want to endorse what he's saying and kind of raise the volume of it and actually bounce off it to make a point about comics. Now, before I get into that, Mystic, if you don't know, is a major YouTuber, especially in the Sony and the PlayStation kind of sphere on the internet. He's great, his channel's great. I'm a huge fan of his and have been for years. I support his Patreon, and I really like his style, I really like his production values, I really like his demeanor and his approach towards making content, and yeah, huge fan of Mystic. A couple of weeks ago, he released a video which was talking about why there appeared to be sort of an increased stigma around liking or enjoying bad games, or rather why it is that people only seem to like critically acclaimed or good games, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10s, and anything that doesn't hit the mark is just generally just absolutely review bombed and piled upon, and people don't seem to enjoy bad games anymore. I think this is a really good point. He makes the point by talking about Mind's Eye, and I'm showing a lot of footage from his video here. I haven't got the sound on because I don't want to get hit with any kind of copyright strike, although obviously I will let him know that I'm using this content for a video, creative and transformational purposes in the video, all that sort of jazz. But what I will say is the video that he made was a really good set of points about what it is to just enjoy the medium, to enjoy video games, and that you shouldn't enjoy video games purely because they're the ones that are critically acclaimed, and you shouldn't immediately write off games that are critically condemned or commercial failures purely on the basis that you've been told not to like them, or that that's what the general narrative or conversation around these games are. And that really echoed with me, because there's loads of games that I absolutely love. My top 10 best of all time games are ones that wouldn't go into anyone else's top 10. So a couple of examples. Prince of Persia 2008, one of my favourite games of all time. Yeah, it was critically reasonably well received, and commercially it did okay, but it ended the Prince of Persia franchise in that direction. They never had a sequel of that style or that universe, so they went back to Sands of Time style games after that. Afro Samurai, huge fan of Afro Samurai, but that spawned one spin-off which was terrible, and Afro Samurai itself wasn't a massive success. One of my favourite games from all time is called Quantum Theory, and Mystic, if you're watching this, I would love to see you play and review Quantum Theory. It is a PS3 360 era game. It was dual platforms, so it was on both platforms, and I actually have it on both of them. It's essentially like a Japanese anime version of Gears of War, genuinely. But the mechanics are great, the graphics are great, the vibe is very Japanese and kind of quirky, but loads of fun as a result. Yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone, but I would also know that most people would hate it, and I absolutely loved it. And I only came across it because I saw the cover and thought, hey, it was only, I don't know, a $5 or something in a bargain bin somewhere, so I picked it up, and even though it's critically condemned, and even though commercially it was a failure, it's one of my favourite games, and I really enjoyed it. A couple of others I can think of is Wet, which again was a game of the same PS3, Xbox 360 era that was on both platforms, and it never did commercially well, never did critically well, but I thought it was fantastic. Basically, I guess the point is, what Mystic talks about is, when did it become rare, or when did it become stigmatized to have fun for fun's sake, to enjoy bad games and actually just enjoy them rather than just pile on them and criticize them? He talks in his review about Mind's Eye, and how even in Mind's Eye, which by all accounts, including his own, had a lot of design flaws and was quite janky, it still had some aspects in it which were fun. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking about a point he makes where he says that you could just live playing AAA games for the rest of your life. We live in an era of content. We live in an era where there's been more content than there's ever been in human history. You could start today, you could freeze time, start today, and spend the next 100 years just playing AAA games, and just playing them once, never replaying, no Game Plus, and you still wouldn't get through all the AAA games that have been released in the last 5 years. Because so many have been released across so many platforms. And actually, if you were to do that, you'd come across games like Grand Theft Auto, and Horizon, and Red Dead Redemption. And that got me thinking, because actually, I don't like Grand Theft Auto. And I don't like Red Dead Redemption. And yeah, I do like Horizon, but Horizon is a funny example. And a lot of the discourse around it is people hating on it because it is just so competent in everything it does. And this is where I want to pivot the conversation to comics, which is what this channel is about. And specifically a little playlist I've got going on this channel called Popular Comics, It's Okay Not to Like. And I've also got a playlist called Unpopular Comics, It's Okay to Like. And in that I talk about things like Watchmen, the comic, which I am absolutely not a fan of and I wouldn't really recommend to anyone. Mouse, the comic, which has won every award under the sun, but I think it's a terrible comic. Sandman, which has got its moments, but generally speaking is kind of boring and kind of sucks. Then there's the comics that I do like. I'm a huge fan of DC, and especially the New 52. I like Crossed, polarizing and controversial though it is. I'm a massive fan of All-Star Batman and Robin, and even when I made a video talking about how I think All-Star Batman and Robin's an amazing story with amazing artwork, and I actually love the characterization, I got loads of comments just going, no, you're wrong. Like, an opinion can be wrong. An opinion can be unsubstantiated, and it can be unique, and it can be lacking any basis, but it's not wrong. Anyway, so this got me thinking. I really liked Mystic's take on it, and I think that same sort of thing applies to comics very much so, which is that there's nothing wrong with enjoying bad comics or enjoying the comics that other people find to be unpopular. But I want to take it just one step past what Mystic was saying, which is he was making the point, you should enjoy what you like, and you shouldn't feel like a pressure not to enjoy certain games because they get badly reviewed and so on. But whilst that applies to comics, I just want to take it one step further. Have you ever played a AAA game that you haven't liked? So in my case, Grand Theft Auto. Absolutely not a fan of any Grand Theft Auto game at all. I'd rather play Tetris. Same with Red Dead Redemption. Does nothing for me. Does less than nothing for me. It's not that I'm against open worlds. I love Horizon. I played all the Assassin's Creeds. But just some games, some styles just do nothing for me. Let alone sports games like FIFA and NFL and that sort of thing. They're absolutely not my sort of game. But they're all AAA games that are incredibly well reviewed and part of billion-dollar franchises. And I think everyone accepts that not every game is for everyone. I think, gamers get that other gamers have different tastes. If you say to someone, oh, I love Red Dead Redemption, and they say, oh, but I hate Horizon, you're like, okay, different strokes for different folks, that's fine. But what I want to consider is the inverse of that. If you've played a AAA game and you thought to yourself, it's not for me, I don't like it, then the other side of that coin is, well, that means that you could play a game that most people think is terrible and is a commercial failure and actually like it. And it's that simple. That's all I want to talk about. Just spinning that thing on its head and just considering that point, which is simply, if you're willing to accept that tastes vary and that not every single person will like every single AAA video game ever created, then what you're accepting implicitly is that not every single person will hate every single commercially failing video game equally. And now, pivoting it back to comics, it makes the exact same point there, which is that if you are into comics, not everyone likes every critically acclaimed comic. Not everyone thinks Watchmen or Mouse or The Dark Knight Returns are the best comics ever made. Personally, I love The Dark Knight Returns, but I don't like Watchmen or Mouse, and that's a fair enough opinion for someone to have. However, if that's the case, then, as I said, the inverse holds true, which is that just because something is a comic that everyone lambasts as being awful, that's not to stop you from trying it. Because if you've ever read a comic like Sandman and thought, that didn't quite click for me, then why not try a comic that everyone else says doesn't click for them, and maybe it will click for you? I don't know. That's the only point that I wanted to make. I just wanted to do a quick, relatively short video on this, and also point people towards Mystic's channel, which is basically pretty awesome if you're into gaming content. I know there's some overlap in my viewership between gamers and comic book readers and stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. And again, this kind of is another way of looking at those two playlists I have. Popular comics, it's okay not to like, or unpopular comics, it's okay to like. And it's just this, is that if you've ever disliked something that's really popular, maybe you'll like something that's really unpopular, and vice versa. Do not let the herd influence your thinking, my friends. Until next time, keep it classy.